Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to talk about planetary shields in Star Trek, which is something we didn't really see that much until recently when we saw it in Star Trek Picard. It was sometimes said that certain planets have planetary defenses, but they never specifically said that those were shields all around the planet, and we never actually saw that until this recent episode of Star Trek Picard. And I actually think this is something we should have seen earlier. This would make sense in the universe of Star Trek, and I will give specific examples to explain it. First of all, it makes sense in terms of technology. We do know that ships have shields, and it's possible to extend shields to very big bubbles around the ship, and so it would make sense for a planet which is densely populated to defend itself, at least its populated regions, the continents, to defend it from bombardment. And we also have a whole bunch of examples of characters on the show saying that a single starship can destroy an entire planet or the population of an entire planet, even in TOS. They said that the Enterprise is actually able to destroy all the cities of a planet or all the population of a planet with one ship. And on Deep Space Nine we saw a fleet of Romulan and Cardassian ships, and they said they have around 20 ships, and they started bombarding a planet and said that 30% of the planet's crust has been destroyed in that initial bombardment. And in a different episode, Garrick said that the Defiant has enough weapons to incinerate the surface of an entire planet, and it fits all those statements made in TOS and even common sense, because if a photon torpedo uses antimatter, then the explosion would be much stronger than any nuclear weapons. Also in one episode, Spock said that nuclear weapons are primitive by the time of TOS, so that implies that their weapons are far stronger than nuclear weapons. So that means it would be possible to destroy a whole population of a planet with a single starship. With a few hundred torpedoes, you'd be able to level every city on the planet. And another example I want to point out was in the episode The Chase in season 6 of TNG, in which we had the Klingon captain destroying the entire atmosphere of a planet because he wanted no one else to get the organic samples from that planet, so he did something to that atmosphere which destroyed the entire biosphere of that planet. And he did all of that in a short time with a single bird of prey, and they never said that he has some kind of special weapon to do it, so it seems to be a totally normal and possible tactic to use. And in a different episode of TNG called A Matter of Time, the Enterprise was trying to fix the atmosphere of a planet, and they said that it has a 50-50 chance of accidentally igniting the entire atmosphere and destroying all the life on the planet. So obviously, with all these examples, it's obvious that a single starship can actually destroy a whole planet. And in all the examples I mentioned, it was always primitive planets, so I presume that on important planets such as Earth, for example, the planet probably does have some sort of planetary shields which would prevent any such attack that I just mentioned, so it would not be possible to destroy the whole planet with just one ship. Otherwise, they would never let any unknown ship get anywhere near it without proper security checks. For example, in one episode we had Quark and Nog and Rom taking a Ferengi ship and flying all the way to Earth, and no one ever stopped them to check them, and so it makes no sense. If it's possible to use one ship to destroy all of Earth, for example, then Earth would be much more paranoid and much more careful, not letting any ships come close to it without a security sweep. And so that's why I think it does make sense for it to have shields. And also in the last season of Deep Space Nine, we actually hear about the Breen attack on Earth, and we see the results of that attack. We see Starfleet Academy suffered some damage, and we see that the Golden Gate Bridge is broken. And what's strange about the shot is that all this damage is really kind of minor. It's not even close to a nuclear explosion, for example. So it makes no sense. If even a single photon torpedo would have hit the city, that should be like a nuclear explosion, destroying the whole city, and yet the damage seems to be much smaller than that. And so one way to explain it is to say that maybe they tried to attack it through the shield, but the shield took the brunt of the attack. The shield kind of absorbed most of the energy of the weapons, and only very small fragments of those weapons managed to get through the shield and to cause some damage, but 99.9% of the attack actually was stopped by the shield. So Earth probably does have a lot of defenses, but the Breen somehow managed to do a sneak attack and to cause some minor damage to Earth, and most of the damage was psychological. It simply scared the people of Earth that they are vulnerable, that a lot of them almost died, because if a single torpedo would have passed through the shields, then the result would have been millions of people dead. They never said how many people died exactly, but I'm assuming that damage was from some phaser or disruptor passing portions of the shields, but no torpedo passed through, otherwise the damage would be far more severe. And so this is the biggest evidence, in my opinion, that there is some sort of shield around the planet that prevented far greater damage than what we see. The only other time that we actually saw a direct attack against the population of Earth was in Enterprise, but that was 200 years before, and it was before Starfleet ships even had shields, and so presumably back then the planet didn't yet have any kind of shields around it, and yet in later times, especially by the time of TNG, I think it's safe to assume that the planet did have shields around it, and we did see the Borg attacking Earth, but the Enterprise got to them right when they entered the Earth's orbit, so we don't yet know how the Borg would have dealt with that. I guess it would have been possible for the Borg to adapt to that shield and overcome it, but it would have taken them a while, and so that's why the Enterprise had time to catch up to them while the Borg were doing something in the orbit. We didn't really see anything being done, but I'm guessing the Borg were scanning the shields and were preparing to disable them somehow to get through the shields. And in Star Trek Picard, we also saw the attack on Mars, and they did say something about those androids disabling the planetary defense shield, so I guess such an attack would be very difficult to do for anyone else, because it was basically an inside job that they were able to hack Mars's own defenses and turn it all against the planet itself, so that's why it was all possible. Otherwise, probably it would be very hard to attack Mars, because it also has some sort of shield and more offensive defenses. We did see a little bit of that in the Borg episode as well, when Mars apparently launched all kinds of crafts against the Borg cube. And so even though we'd never really seen any kind of planetary shields in the old Star Trek shows, I'm guessing they were always there, at least in the time of TNG and Deep Space Nine, because it just wouldn't make sense for important planets with a big population to not defend itself. And since shield technology is possible, and it's possible to extend shields, I'm guessing it is possible to do it around the planet as well. And maybe it was simply invisible most of the time, maybe it was designed to let certain ships and certain things through the shield and only not to allow weapon fire or unauthorized transporter beaming, or maybe warp collisions. Maybe some ship will not stop in time and might collide into the planet, and so to prevent that, the shield was configured not to let any ship through at warp speed. So in short, I think planetary shields are a must in this kind of universe, and so I presume they always existed, we just didn't happen to see them in activity, or they were invisible, for example, in that Borg attack. Other examples that are similar, I think it was said in Star Trek 6 that the Klingon planet was going to become uninhabitable in the next 50 years because its moon exploded, and because of all the radiation, it will destroy the atmosphere of the planet, something like that, and so we never actually had an explanation how that problem was solved. I'm presuming maybe because of the peace treaty with the Federation, maybe Starfleet was able to help the Klingons stabilize their atmosphere to prevent that catastrophe that was going to happen. We know that the Federation has all kinds of weather control technology and stuff like that, so it's possible they were able to help the Klingons fix their atmosphere and stay on their planet. And the main reason I brought up the Praxis moon explosion was that it's very strange how was the Klingon planet was even able to survive that explosion, because it was apparently some kind of giant subspace explosion which even affected starships far away, because we saw it affecting Sulu's ship light years away. So if it could cause such huge damage so far away, light years away, so how could the Klingon planet, which was right next to that moon, was even able to survive that explosion close by? So the only explanation was that the planet had a powerful shield around it which shielded it from the explosion. Maybe just barely managed to defend the planet, and yet that same shockwave, which apparently was moving faster than light, had some effect on starships light years away. So all of that event proves that the Klingon planet could only have survived if it had a very powerful shield around the planet. Otherwise it would not have survived an explosion that was felt light years away. And they said something about mining on the Praxis moon, so I guess the explosion was caused by some kind of dilithium crystals, and because the dilithium crystals can bend space-time, maybe that's why the shockwave of that explosion of the dilithium crystals was moving faster than light. It was like a warp explosion, basically. So the only reason the Klingons survived all of that was because they had such a powerful shield, and so such a shield would also be able to stop ships from colliding into the planet at warp speed. And even if an entire fleet attacks the planet will probably be able to hold for a while, even against a big attack. So from all these examples I mentioned, I think it's safe to assume that all these major powers like the Klingons, the Federation, and the Romulans probably did have planetary shields. And of course I didn't even mention all the alien civilizations which had more advanced technology than Starfleet. For example, the planet Aldea in Season 1 of TNG, which was set specifically to have a shield all around the planet. And they could even use the shield to turn invisible if they wanted to, and they could prevent anyone from beaming over to the planet, and also presumably to defend the planet from any attack. So this is a direct example of a planetary shield being mentioned. Although we never actually saw it, they didn't add the special effect, but they did say that they have the shield around it, and so it is possible in Star Trek to have shields around planets, and I'm assuming Starfleet and the Federation also had that kind of technology, otherwise it just wouldn't make sense. So that's really all I had to say about it for today. Let me know what you think and we can discuss it in the comment section below, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.